Welcome to the Money Made Human podcast. It celebrates at its heart the work of credit unions and their vital role in enriching our lives and communities. Brought to you by First Class Credit Union, each episode features insightful discussions revealing the meaningful impact that can be made through economic collaboration. Mostly, it's a collection of compassionate conversations about navigating life and the individual journeys we take. Hello, friends, and welcome to Money Made Human, a podcast by First Class Credit Union. We're delighted today to be joined by a key person in our sector, the chair of the World Council of Credit Unions, and also the CEO of the Customer-Owned Banking Association in Australia. If we could just give a big welcome, dialing in all the way from Sydney, Australia, to Michael Lawrence.
We've got a cheek squad here.
We do. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. I guess it's a good afternoon there and a good morning here.
Yes, it is. We're pushing it well into the afternoon here, but still a reasonable time, all things considered.
Yeah, no, thank you. To be fair, if it had been during the night here, we would still have come in to do the interview. That's how important you are to us. So we're hoping to talk to you today about your role with the World Council, about the credit union movement in general, and I guess just a little bit about you as well and your career. But first, we thought we would start by talking about Sydney, Australia. It's going to be the venue for the next World Forum in 2026. I've lived there myself. What do you say about Sydney? Why are you passionate about bringing the credit union movement there?
Well, there's a couple of reasons for why I'm passionate about bringing it here. One is to obviously showcase my own country. We are a little bit biased here. We do think Sydney is arguably the greatest place on earth. It's certainly got many attractions. And I think the other, more importantly, for me bringing it to Australia is to showcase what we're doing here in Australia. I think that, as with the UK and other parts of the world, Canada and others, there are certain countries that are arguably at the forefront of banking on a number of aspects. And I think that there is a lot that we can bring to the conference by having it jointly run by COBA in conjunction with the World Council. We just finished our conference actually last weekend here in Sydney. Sorry, we held it in Brisbane, of which we had about 1,000 participants. So to have them join the World Council, and it's that networking which is, a key aspect of any conference. And I think showcasing what we're doing is really important.
Mm-hmm. And they must be so proud of you to become the chair of the World Council, as well as your day job. That must help them to give a profile to Australia and all of the mutuals that are within Australia as well. Do you feel that pride? Do you feel that from them as well?
Absolutely. There is a thing in Australia called tall poppy syndrome, and that is a saying that used where Australians make sure they keep you grounded. So don't get ahead of yourself. You're not that important, which is a tongue-in-cheek, but it is an Australian thing. We don't let people get ahead of themselves by thinking they are too important. We've all got roles to play. But, I think being an Australian and representing a global organisation is a great honour. Mm-hmm. It's not lost on me, and it's not lost on my members either.
Brilliant. I'd like to talk more about that in a few moments, but I'd like to show you a clip of an Australian that's gone viral this week. That's a little bit further afield from home. You may have seen it. Let me just share it on screen.
So what's it like being first time you're away from them?
Yeah, that part's hard. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, I love them a lot. Yeah, I got two little brothers and my mum and dad, and yeah, that's the tough part about being here. I love them a lot and I miss them, but it's I mean, they know this is what's best for me, and it's good. I can still talk to them plenty over the phone, and they're coming here to see the first few games, so I'm looking forward to that. Cool. Thanks, guys. Great meeting you all.
So, Mike, just a brilliant example of a young Australian away from home, and how emotional and just beautiful, really, that was. Have you seen the video clip? And
yes, I have.
You have. What did you think about it?
I think, for me, there's sort of a couple of aspects to the video. One, we are very, very fortunate here in Australia, given the country that we live in. And particularly as you travel more, I think you learn to understand really how good we do have it here in terms of a quality of life, just the social benefits that we provide more broadly as a country to people who are in need. It's not perfect, and we have our share of issues, but when you look at all of the issues going on around the world, and excuse me, a lot of these geopolitical issues are particularly concerning, that certainly have impacts back home, but it does make you very thankful for where you do live, and you're in exactly the same position where you are in Scotland.
Absolutely. What's your experience of working away from Australia? I know you've had some time in the UK. How have you transacted away from home and felt that separation from family and colleagues?
Look, I have been fortunate. I've worked in Los Angeles, New York, Glasgow for a couple of years. I think for me, given I was the one transferred for work, it was a lot easier than my wife. And the reason being is that, I wake up and I'm connected with people the moment I'm there. I may not know them initially, but I'm connected through work. And whether you're working here in Sydney or whether you're working in Glasgow, work is work, and you're building that broader network of colleagues. For my wife, who wakes up day one and knows no one, and then has the challenges of young children in our case, and knowing who do you turn to. You use relocation consults, but it is more difficult, I think, for the partner than the one stepping into work. It was a bit different in America. She was working with the Australian consulate, but that was pre-children. So again, that was a bit easier. But you do miss home. You miss family. You miss those little things that you take for granted that you don't get when you're overseas. But that said, those overseas countries give you a level of experience that you can't get from just working back home.
So much, you get so much from working and traveling internationally. It's amazing. What was your experience in Glasgow?
Look, it was brilliant. I even to this day say I left a little bit of me back in Scotland. Interestingly, my boys were very young at the time, but they absolutely love everything about Scotland. My middle boy proposed to his now wife in the Highlands of Scotland.
Nice.
And I've got really good friends. I was over there recently staying with friends in Octorara. I
Amazing.
just love everything about the place, the people, the country. Yeah, just wonderful experiences. And I don't mind a whiskey as well.
Oh, as we do, as we do. Tell me about your experience. You've been in banking for over 30 years. Would that be true? Or in the financial sector?
Yeah, well, let's say 40 years.
40.
I'll show my age.
What shaped your values during that time? You know, is it people? Because you come across as a very empathetic leader. I noticed that when you were on stage at WOCCU in Sweden, you came across as someone that had compassion and empathy. And I wondered, did you find that, or was it in your upbringing? What molded you?
I think there's a lot of life experiences that mold you over time. And work is one of them. But you know, when I first started my career, I think it's probably fair to say, as I reflect on it, you know, I was a man on a mission, and no one was going to get in my way, and it was a little bit of take no prisoners to get to where I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But as you move into leadership roles and you observe other leaders, you can go about it in a number of different ways, and it can be command and control. It can be more of a dictator type approach, or you can try to take people on the journey. And one thing I've observed with leaders, you know, some of the best, all leaders are generally, you know, reasonably high on the IQ, but they're not always high on the EQ.
Mm-hmm.
And I've experienced some brilliant people from an IQ perspective with no EQ,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been an absolute train wreck in terms of their leadership because they have no empathy. And at the end of the day, one person doesn't have all the answers. One person can't do it on their own. You need teams of people on that journey. So, you know, the more you relate, you know, to your staff, to your colleagues, the better the outcome's going to be. So, you know, I think I've learnt through my career, you know, leadership's never a perfect formula. That's why there's so many books on leadership, and continues to be books written on leadership. And you know, as fantastic as Jack Welch was as GE, and you know, they're now writing about him in terms of his leadership style, which is really not the present day. I mean, there is elements of what he did which was brilliant, but there's other things that have been sort of brought into question. So, you know, things change, but absolutely that EQ is, for me, it needs to be high on any leader. I think so that's the work side of things. And then if I sort of reflect on my personal side, well, again, you're shaped by your family. Yeah, I come from a very close family. I've got two brothers and you know, their kids, and so it goes on. But I've also got a child with special needs. And yes, and Josh, our little baby, he's not so little anymore. He's 26, still lives with us, and it just has a fantastic life. He's one of the most socially active kids you could ever meet. Extremely well travelled. He loves to travel. He's just come back from Scandinavia with us. But when I see the things that he achieves, which are arguably some of the simple things that you would take for granted with, I've got two older boys, it puts things into perspective as well. But it's also, you know, I observe how others treat him and include him, or don't they include him? And unfortunately, we see that all too often in the workplace where people are excluded. And it's not because they've got special needs. It could be for a whole variety of reasons. And that's just not healthy. So,
No.
yeah, I think you get shaped in a number of different ways.
He sounds like he's an inspiration to you, though, in terms of, does that creep into your leadership role, that compassion and empathy, and you want people to be treated well? Does that creep into that
It does.
inspiration?
It does. And if I talk about it too much, I'll be the babbling mess like the video you just showed of the Australian.
Hey, listen, I cry all the time. It's fine.
So, yeah, look, absolutely it does. But I don't, it's not always conscious because it's become who I am in terms of, I think we need to care for others. I mean, I've been very fortunate in life in many aspects, with career and enormous circle of friends, and I don't take that for granted. And you've got to be a good person, otherwise you won't have that.
Totally. We just on that very subject, we were inspired when we went to the WOCCU conference in Sweden, and we came back, and as a direct result, we've changed some of the things we do in our business. You'll see the sign behind me. We've doubled down on the concept of money made human, and we want to really offer our members a very human experience. And whilst we've got advances in technology and we're moving forward with different products, we want this to be a human experience. And we saw that in Sweden. And I don't know if the World Council have picked up on some of that, but could I share with you what inspired us?
Yeah, please.
We were inspired by 3 delegations in particular. The delegation from Ukraine, who just came in and were so stoic and just illustrated perseverance in their physical being. We were inspired by the delegation from Brazil and their energy and passion and their pride for their flag. There was hundreds of people from Brazil there. And the delegation from Ireland, who offered us so much companionship and humour and community while we were there. And we really thought about it whilst we were in Sweden and thought, let's come back and try and encapsulate all of that we've learned. And alongside that, we're very lucky to have Glasgow University a few miles down the road. And the father of economics went there, Adam Smith, who, whilst he talked about free markets, he also developed other theories about how we have sympathy for others and care for others. And we felt it was a really great time to kind of look to the past, to remind ourselves of what you've just said, that care for others is really important. And I suppose, I'm sorry for the elongated question and explanation, but I guess what I want to say or ask is, we have all this global conflict going on just now. It feels tough. It's frightening. There's famine, there's food poverty. I think we're all scared of that, but there's actually this really cool thing which you're kind of leading, which is a network of people underneath, businesses built underneath, that is really just people helping people. And I wondered, are you proud of that? Do you feel that? And how is that care? How do we manifest that care globally?
Yeah, look, we talk about that all the time at a World Council level around the importance of mutuality and what that stands for, and people helping people. I mean, that's the origin of the roots of that whole cooperative movement globally. It is people helping people. And we should never lose sight of that. Yes, we've got to develop as organisations and remain relevant to the next generation coming through. So we need to invest in technology and innovate. But at the end of the day, we can never lose that human element. And even with all the talk of AI, at the end of the day, there are times where people want to speak to someone. And at the end of the day, as a race, we need human contact. It is vitally important for the existence of human race. I mean, there's been plenty written on that, and I'm no expert on it.
Yeah.
So that's what we do in spades in terms of why we exist. We exist for our customers or our members. Different countries use different terminologies.
Sure.
And our communities. And we don't see that with the big listed banks. They are driven by their shareholder return. And I know certainly here in Australia and other parts of the world, there is a reason why we constantly rate far higher in terms of trust and that service proposition because we do care. So it's very important.
What's your hopes for your role within the World Council? What would you hope your own legacy to be for the time that you serve as chair, and what are you hoping for from the World Council next year in Sydney?
Look, for me, the legacy is continuing to make a difference. We've had a challenge in the last sort of 6 to 8 months, where by a big part of what the World Council does, projects. When Donald Trump came in, one of the first executive orders he signed was the closure of USAID. And we had some significant projects in Peru, Ecuador, and other Ukraine. We had to close those overnight. And that was bitterly disappointing. It also saw a lot of staff being laid off as a result because they were employed for those projects. But what was, and so there's a human element, but it's also the impact that we as the World Council could make on countries that are still developing, that are less fortunate than others. And that was shut down overnight. So we've had to pivot as an organisation around our focus. It wasn't the only thing we do. Advocacy is a big part of what the World Council does, and we want to double down on that. And I suppose for me, the projects will continue to explore opportunities from a project perspective. But how do we continue to build the advocacy piece? Because that really cuts across all members. And if you're an association, it's how do you continue to remain relevant to your membership base? And what is the biggest impact you can do? Now, when you represent over 70 countries, 80,000 credit unions, banking 400 million people globally, that opens doors for you. And it opens the doors of the international standard setting bodies at the highest level. So if we are meeting with the Financial Stability Board, Basel, or the Bank of International Settlements, we are meeting the highest people, advocating and drawing awareness to what we represent as credit unions. So that is enormously powerful and can have an impact the world over in terms of more proportionate regulation. So I think we've got to double down on that because we've got enormous amount of opportunity to influence from that perspective. And then the other side of it is also the foundation. Now, how do we continue to leverage the foundation? It is predominantly supported by US credit unions.
Mm-hmm.
But we think that there is opportunities for us to do far more. And so we are looking at, how do we build that out going forward as well? And we had, surprisingly, for the first time ever, or certainly the first time in my tenure, a joint board meeting of WOCCU and the foundation. Because the foundation, even though it is part of the World Council, it has an independent and separate board, but never the two would meet. And that just doesn't make any sense.
No.
When you're all part of the one organisation. So we had a wonderful meeting in Stockholm between the two boards around how we continue to build that collaborative piece that everyone's going to benefit from. So, my legacy continuing to make a difference, and hopefully it makes the world a better place.
Well, absolutely. I read a small thing this morning that just said even one person helping another is success, and you're doing it on a global scale. What can credit unions do to help? Can we help? Well, I don't know if that's an option, but is that something that's ever been considered?
The World Council itself, in terms of its membership, is 4 associations that then have the credit unions behind it. So the more that you're behind your association, who's a member of the World Council, then you're playing your role in that. It's also, the role that you can play is being part of the whole engagement piece. The fact that you attended the conference in Stockholm, the fact that you'll be coming to Sydney, that's all part of playing your piece, because as you said earlier, you've come back and made some significant changes to your own organisation off the back of the learnings that you had and the interactions that you had just from that conference in Stockholm. So, that's you playing your part.
It's the domino effect.
It's the domino effect, and your members will benefit from that. And that's a wonderful story for me as chair of the World Council to hear that you're getting value out of these conferences, because we put plenary sessions and business sessions together. It's challenging at the World Council level, because when you've got 50, 60 countries represented, from developing countries to developed countries, it's hard to get that pitch right. So it's never going to be perfect. But what is so powerful about conferences like that is the opportunity to network and engage. And as you've already said, engage with other countries. We should never underestimate the value you can get talking to another country and not having that blind assumption that you're better than them or you're more sophisticated. I've just had, at my conference, I wanted an international flavour. And so I had Canada and the US, but I had Asia. So Lenny from WOCCU in Asia, and she was absolutely insightful, because she really brought us back to the core of why we exist, which is that mutuality piece, because they do an amazing job. We as a developing country, or as a developed country, and as we get bigger and bigger, we've got to make sure that we don't start acting and behaving as if we're big banks ourselves, and we lose what we stand for. And I think, we've always got something to learn from someone. It blows me away talking to Kenya and some of the work that they're doing. We can always learn something.
No, absolutely. I think that's why we've been so passionate about changing bits and pieces for our business, because whilst we are advancing, we want to remember we're here to serve our members, and that spirit of mutuality is so important. So, we're so grateful for what we have picked up at the World Forum. Why are some countries growing their credit union numbers faster, bigger than others? We see the growth in the US, in Canada, Kenya, for example, South Korea. What can we do more of in the UK to grow our membership? Is it about bringing to life that spirit of mutuality again? What is it, your advocacy piece around regulation? What can we do? What would your advice be on that?
I might just correct you if I can on that, because unfortunately the likes of Canada and the US are not growing.
They're not, okay.
No, and nor is Australia, and nor is many other parts of the world. And when I say we're not growing, we are growing our assets, but there is mergers that are happening within. And Australia 40 years ago had about 600. 600, we call them credit unions, building societies, mutual banks, and hence we use the term customer-owned banks. We had upwards of 600. We've got 55 today.
Is that right?
And yeah, and Canada, and I just recently graphed Canada's over the last 30 years, and it absolutely mirrors Australia. And I think I'm right in saying that America had over 20,000 credit unions, and they're down to just short of 5,000 now. So there is massive consolidation going on around certainly the developed countries. It's getting harder and harder for the really small ones to continue to compete with the burden of all the regulation and compliance, what I call the blizzard of regulation. And they're merging. And I mean, there are different reasons why organizations will merge. Some are trying to expand into other geographical areas, but needless to say, they're merging. But they're merging within the sector. So they're merging within, in our case, the customer-owned banking sector. So their total assets every year grow. It's just being held by fewer members. But it is a piece of work that we are focused on. I know Canada is doing the same, because when you project out, what does that mean? What does it mean for our regional areas where a lot of ours are headquartered? What does it mean for us as an association in terms of how we continue to serve that membership? So it's something that is absolutely on our radar, and excuse me, I mean, it's not something we will stop, but the more we can, at a World Council level and back home in your own jurisdictions, the more we can make things as easy as possible, to put it in a very simplistic manner, then hopefully we're not going to see forced mergers because people can't survive. Excuse me. And so that whole proportionality of regulation is critically important. And so they're not unduly burdened relative to the big ones. And so we've got a really key part to play in helping our members, both at a World Council and, as I said, for me here in Australia.
It's such a fascinating point about growth, because the appearance from outside, I guess the scale that we see looks like growth. But it's interesting to hear from you what goes on underneath the numbers. Perhaps our little campaign about our unique selling point of humanness is exactly what we need just now. Feel free to take it across the globe with you.
Yes.
What about more locally in Australia? What are your members facing there? What are the worry points for people in Australia? Is it getting on the housing market? Is it price of groceries? What are people finding it tough there?
So the two biggest things is cost of living
Mm-hmm.
and housing affordability.
Mm-hmm.
We have a housing market, unlike most other countries. Canada is a bit the same. Well, Sydney itself is the second most expensive city in the world in terms of real estate. And it's just becoming a huge issue for government and more broadly the economy because of the younger generation's inability to get into the market. And so the government is, they've used that as an election platform, both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And there are support mechanisms that the government here has implemented. One of them is what they call the home guarantee scheme for first home buyers. And so the government normally, as you would well know, when you provide a loan for a mortgage, for a home loan, you want the customer to have 20% savings.
Mm-hmm.
And people just can't save the 20. Property prices are increasing at a faster rate than they're able to save. So they're actually going backwards in many cases. The government has now stepped in and said, we will guarantee 15%. Okay. And so the first homeowner only needs 5% down. So there are initiatives like that, but it's, it's far broader than that. It goes to the whole supply and demand issue. It goes to our immigration levels, which people would argue are too high and are driving up property prices. We have state, federal issues as a whole raft. It's not an easy fix, but it is front of mind for everyone because housing affordability is the worst in the world here in Australia in terms of the amount people have to pay out of their salaries. The other one is cost of living. I think we're the lucky country, but with that, we import a lot. Wages are very high in Australia, and again, these are not simple measures, but it is a little bit of concern in terms of that divide between the haves and the have-nots growing. We've always been strong on having a really good, strong middle class, and we need to continue to make sure that we do. We see that in America, the divide between those who have and those who don't is widening at a scaring rate. So we've got our challenges here on those two fronts. What also keeps our CEOs awake is some of the geopolitical issues and potential impacts that might have, and it keeps our regulators awake as well. What happens, because wars these days are not always fought in the traditional manner. What happens if we had a state attack on our energy system, on our telecommunications? What does that mean more broadly for the economy? So there's a lot of, and then cyber, the whole cyber scams, fraud, they're the sort of front of mind issues that are occupying us.
It's difficult to navigate. I think we're certainly seeing some of those points here in the UK as well in terms of the cost of living. And I guess just fear of the global standing just now. It has felt quite scary at times.
Yeah, well, that's right. Sorry, I'll just back up because I'm not sure if your listeners would know but in Australia, we are obsessed with property in Australia. You just don't buy a place and then live in it forever. You trade up.
Sure.
You buy, if you can afford it, an investment property, a holiday property. We're just obsessed, and people see it as a huge part of their retirement in terms of the equity that they build up in property. So that helps drive it. The credit unions in Australia, when they first formed, and that was that peer-to-peer lending, it was nurses helping other nurses, police helping police, and so on. A lot of that lending was personal lending. But if you look at the balance sheets of our credit unions, building societies, and mutuals, across our whole sector, 94% of our total balance sheet is exposure to home lending.
No, really amazing.
Yeah. That, with the exception of probably Canada, that generally blows people away because, in America, credit unions are big on auto loans, and other forms of lending. In Australia, it's home lending. That's not to say they don't do credit card, they don't do personal loans, but it's at the margin compared to what is the main game here in Australia.
What's the objective with it? Is it to serve the members or customers? Is it to take market share from the big four Aussie banks? Is it a bit of both? What's the hope for it? And is it safe? Is it safe to have so much of the balance sheet tied to home loans?
Oh, you're sounding like a regulator.
Am I allowed to ask that?
Yes, absolutely. The regulator will say, "Do you have concentration risk?" Look, there's a whole different ways that we mitigate, that concentration risk here in Australia.
Sure.
And but at the end of the day, you're serving your member base, and your member base has a demand for this. Yep. It is also, from a banking perspective, where you make most of your margin, and we are for profit. We don't say we are not for profit. We are for profit. You have to make, as you well know, we've all got to make a profit to be able to invest in our business, to be able to innovate, have the capital you require, to be able to then continue to provide the products and services that your members need. So profit is important, but it comes with a different focus, as opposed to profit to drive shareholder return. And that drives totally different behaviours as a result of that.
And with all that said, you must be excited about bringing your colleagues to Sydney to see some of those properties and the harbour and, the iconic views that we all know. You'll
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that, as I travel around other parts of the world, the number of people who say to me, "I would love to come to Australia. I've always wanted to, on my bucket list."
Yep.
And some of those iconic features, be it the Opera House, be it Sydney Harbour Bridge, the Blue Mountains, the harbour itself, and that's just Sydney. I think, hopefully by having the World Council conference in Sydney, we've played our little part to help them deliver on their dream to get here to Australia, because they've now got a very good reason to do that. And so, as I said, we're very proud of our country. Sydney is an international city. It is well known. It features around the world, and it's a place people would love to come to, and I'm sure we can showcase it. It's just a pity that the conference, the World Council conference, is July, because that
In
is not our
winter.
summer.
It's
It
in
is our
winter.
winter. Yes,
Yeah.
but it's not a winter like you would experience.
No.
So it is all relative, and it's a particularly cold day today here in Australia, wet. But I still think I think we're still getting to 17 degrees today, Celsius. So
Well, like you said about Glasgow, having lived in Sydney, I think a part of it just stays with you forever. I have actually have 4 little Australian children, so I'm biased.
yes,
But
yes.
we love the country, and thank you for inviting colleagues to attend WOCCU next year. I'm sure they will enjoy it and relish being there, and given all the learning that we've picked up, we hope colleagues can go and do the same. So before we finish, a couple of last questions for you. I think you spoke so eloquently about global issues and leadership. What's your pathway ahead? What are you really looking forward to doing or achieving in the next couple of years?
I think for me, it's really stepping up this advocacy piece with the international standard setting bodies, and going beyond that. So what I mean by going beyond that, we sat down as a board a few years ago now, and we're enormously frustrated with some of the messaging we were getting out of the Bank of International Settlements, for example, Basel. And I'd been to a meeting with them, and I had a colleague from America and Canada as well. And they basically said to us at the time, we exist to regulate international banks. So what your regulators do to your domestic banks is not really our concern. Words to that effect. That was not the message we needed, because what happens is when regulation is set at an international level, then typically it flows down to domestic, and it's a one size fits all, and we suffer disproportionately as a result of that. So we wrote back to the Basel, to the Secretary General, and we've been working very hard on our engagement with them, to the point we now see, well, not long after we wrote back to them, they put out a global survey to regulators saying, how do you apply proportionality within your own jurisdiction?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're also consciously aware of the contagion risks, and domestic banks play a part in that. And so there's a lot more focus. We've opened those doors in that dialogue, and we're seeing a lot more talk at an international level around the need for proportionality. And that's a very broad statement, I know, but we'll continue to do that. But when back at the time of this, when we didn't think we were getting the cut through that we wanted, we said, well, who does the Basel Committee get its writing instructions from?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the G20. And so we've been able to influence the agenda of the G20 around the importance of inclusion in financial services. And that's the power that the collective brings, and the power that the World Council has, because of what we represent globally, and we can't be ignored. And so
I can't think of a higher level.
No, no, exactly. But these things, as the old saying goes, we're not going to solve world hunger overnight. we're not going to solve all our issues, but as we continue to raise the profile of who we are and what we stand for, and that we are not just banks.
No, we're human.
We have a higher.
We're human.
We're human. We have a higher purpose, and that is starting to resonate, and it's resonating with some of these international standard setting bodies. It obviously resonated with the G20 in terms of the importance of financial inclusion.
Amazing. Thank you for representing us all. Would your parents be proud of you? Are they?
Yes, I know they are. They're proud of all their boys, as parents should be.
Yeah.
They don't play favouritism, and
Yeah.
and both my the brothers have had very successful careers, but in totally different walks of life. So parents should always be proud of their kids, and yeah, I know they're proud of me, but you know, I think, you know, I don't think it's what you do in your job that makes them proud. I mean, yes, that they want to see you to be successful, but they want to see those values. If you know, if they truly believe in their own values, which my parents do, to see that passed on, and that we're doing the right thing.
For what it's worth, they've done a good job.
Yes, I've got two. My parents are, well, what are they, 86, still very active. I was down on the weekend seeing them, and still live in the family home, still travel.
Brilliant.
Have a wonderful life, and yeah, they're very proud.
Oh, love it. So we've got a quick quiz for you before you go, if that's okay. Are you ready? Quick fire round. Okay.
Yep.
So, would you rather, Australian style, Bondi or Balmoral Beach?
Balmoral.
Bundaberg ginger beer or Scottish iron brew?
My oldest boy loves iron brew. For me, it's, well, they do say it's a good hangover drink.
100%.
So I do like it from that perspective. It does have a taste of chemical to it, so I'll probably go with the Bundaberg.
Tim Tams or Fairy Bread?
Tim Tams.
Sydney or Melbourne?
Well, interestingly, Sydney, but I'm born and bred Melbourne.
Really?
I love Melbourne for the sport.
And the food?
All my family's Melbourne. I do like Melbourne for the food, for the sport. I'm a sports man.
Okay.
But in terms of my lifestyle, I just love everything about Sydney.
We've got a sports question coming up, but before that, Sydney or Glasgow?
What for what though? If it's for the weather, Sydney. Look, for me, I would never compare home to abroad. You know, I think one of the things when you move away for work, you always know you're coming back.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I've left a little part of me in Scotland, a little part of me in America, and I will always go back, and I've got amazingly fond memories of all of those. Home is home. We're in a wonderful country, and I would have no interest of packing the family up and moving somewhere else on a permanent basis.
Yeah.
It's just too good here.
Home
so
is
I
home.
won't. Home is home.
Home is home. Vegemite or Marmite?
Oh, Vegemite, and you can throw Marmite in the bin.
Rugby league or rugby union?
Rugby league. I just the rugby union, growing up in Melbourne, I'm Aussie rules.
Okay.
And so that's another code.
Yep.
Because I didn't grow up on rugby union, I find the rules too complicated. And so rugby league is an easier game to watch.
The Ashes at the MCG or the Open at the home of golf, St Andrews?
The home and golf at St Andrews.
Oh, yeah, I'm surprised we've not got applause for that one. The Hunter Valley or Margaret River?
Margaret River.
And final question, our podcast, Money Made Human or watching TV?
Money Made Human every time.
So, Mike, thank you for spending time with us. We've really enjoyed it. It's been great to talk to you. And we wish you all the success in your role as chair of WOCCU and in your day job and as a dad and all the other roles you've got. Thank you for...
I'm a grandfather. I'm now
and
a grandfather too. So,
amazing. Yeah. But thank you for dialing in from Sydney. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's been wonderful chatting to you, and I wish you all the very best in your own endeavours.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Money Made Human podcast. We're grateful to spend time with you and hope you enjoyed it. If you want to join a credit union, choose us. With love, until the next time, First Class Credit Union.